Okay, I'm calling the Town Services and Outreach Committee meeting to order at 10:33, and we noticed the meeting for 10:30. This is the Town Services and Outreach Committee meeting of October 23rd, 2025. And I guess that the first thing that I need to do is to remind everybody that this meeting is being conducted via remote means. Members of the public have access to the meeting by Zoom and by telephone. There's no in-person attendance at this meeting, either by the committee or by the public, but we've made every effort to make sure that people have access in real time on technological means. And I want to remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded. So that said, let me check in to make sure that the members of the committee that are for now, we don't know if Hollis being able to join us or not, but you might be able to check with her. Councilor Ryan, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
And Jennifer?
Yes.
And Bob Egner?
Yes, present.
Okay, so we have 4 members present, and that constitutes a quorum, and we can proceed. So I think that the next thing I need to do is it's a matter of how the council rules work, is to check and see if there's any request for public comment. I know that there's one member of the public somebody in attendance. If there's an interest in making public comment, please raise your hand. This is totally regarding one agenda item, which is the town council policy regarding control and regulation of the public ways. And if there is any questions the members of the public have of me about other issues, just send me an email. Councilor Lord has joined us. Councilor Lord, can you hear?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. So
Thank
the
you.
way that we're going to proceed is in just a moment, I'm going to do a share screen with a revised draft of the policy that is the sole subject of today's discussion. And I'll have it on the screen and then be able to actually work with the, so that at that point, when I do that, I may not be able to see who has hands raised. And so I'm asking Councilor Ryan, who's the vice chair of the committee, at that point to take over that particular role of making sure that people who want to be recognized are recognized. What happened yesterday is that Councilor Ryan and I met along with Paul Bockelman with Lauren Goldberg from KP Law, and we reviewed the policy draft that was sent to the committee yesterday and should be added to the packet for today's meeting, since it is being discussed at today's meeting. And then the version that I'll be putting on the screen is also available. I leave it to Athena to decide what should go in the packet. The policy I did send to the version that we're going to be looking at. I did already send it to Councilor Ryan and to Town Manager Bockelman, so that they can, Paul can provide a copy if you need it, Athena. What happened in the discussion was that we talked about a series of issues that had been concerning to the committee, that had been kind of hanging us up, and a little bit it had been hanging GOL up also. And it was a very worthwhile discussion. And I think that there were two major points that we covered in particular, and then we went over the policy again to make sure that it was in conformity with what we wanted, which is why I do not think that it needs further legal review, because what I'm going to be showing on the screen in a minute is the version that we developed yesterday with the meeting with Attorney Goldberg. So Attorney Goldberg is obviously already knows what we put in it and has approved it and directed us. The one issue that we talked about was the Board of License Commissioners. And for the most part, we dropped the Board of License Commissioners from most of the policy, other than the delegation of authority. The Board of License Commissioners has its own regulations on the lunch cart issue, which is what we referred to them. And it has policies regarding public hearings that are held in regard to lunch carts. And that is sufficient to cover the subject. And I pointed out that the lunch cart has been assigned to them for the last 7 years, 6 years since we adopted this policy. And in no time have they reported to the council, and nobody from the council has asked for reports, and therefore regular reports we did not think were necessary, and she was fine with that. The other thing we talked about a lot was the subject of public hearings. And I think what the major point was that she was making is that public hearings do not require any notice or publication unless it's required by statute. And so in the zoning public hearing, there are very specific rules regarding public hearings that apply. But she pointed out that public hearings are held all the time, and they're just noticed as a part of the agenda and as long as they're announced in the agenda, which is posted 48 hours in advance, that there's no need to do any notification, and that we should just, if it's easier to call something a public hearing, just because that's what people think of as an opportunity to be heard, that we should just go ahead and do so. And there's in the discussion that followed, I pointed out that we have public hearings that are required by the charter that the finance, for an example, is the finance committee is required to hold a public hearing on the budget, and we just notice it in the agenda for the meeting. And we don't otherwise treat it as anything exceptional. And the other example that came in yesterday's email after we met was we all got a notice that the Board of Health is holding a public hearing about tobacco issues. So we felt comfortable with those, with making changes regarding public hearings, and including it, dropping all requirements of notice, because that is where the burden that we were concerned about is whether it would be a cost or in direct cost or cost in staff time. And if it's just posted, it's not, doesn't fit into that category. So Councilor Ryan, is there anything else that you want to report from the meeting?
No, Andy, I think you've captured it. That's fine.
Is there any questions now before I go into share screen? Seeing none, let's see if I can find, I believe that this is the correct one. So actually I can see on the side of the screen, I can see hands, I can see all of you. So if you raise your hands. So the first thing is we go through this, and what I'm hoping we can do is agree on this and or make changes as we go, and that we can conclude this meeting fairly quickly with the complete policy. Because while it looks like there are a lot of changes, they're really all in the very beginning, and then a few as we move along. The one thing that Attorney Goldberg suggested was that we take this sentence that is you see with my cursor, and about complying with state laws and regulations, and move it to section A for purpose and authority. And since it was Attorney Goldberg who suggested that we do that, we went ahead and made that change. Councilor Ryan?
So anyone want to explain the rationale behind it, or did you want to go ahead and do that? What her thinking was?
You can go ahead. Just I'm going to keep it moving, but go ahead and explain. So if anyone...
Well, I just want committee members to understand why she did what she did. It's a small matter, but this particular section A applies to everyone that is delegated authority under this policy, whereas where it was originally placed, it only applied to TPC and to BLC, and then we took the BLC out. So she felt that it made more sense to put it at the very top, so it applies to everyone who is a delegee. So that includes obviously the Board of License Commissioners, along with the Transportation Parking Commission. It includes the Superintendent of Public Works. It includes Paul, the Police Chief, Fire Chief, etc. It's just covering our covering the bases. So that's why it was moved out of section C into section A.
So if there's agreement to that, I will make that change. Is anybody, I'll just leave it. If anybody has an objection, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and make that in because, so I'm saying accept move. Okay. Then the next thing that we came up with was that we wanted to change this to remove the Board of License Commissioners, so that we it changes the title, recommendations and other actions of TPC, and we removed Board of License Commissioners from that sentence. If there are any objections, please raise your hand. Councilor Ryan.
So again, Andy, just to explain, and maybe it's obvious to everybody, so I apologize, but it turns out that in section C, everything refers to TPC. So it made sense to just remove BLC and make it clear that section C applies only to the Transportation and Parking Commission. And that's also why that sentence got moved up to section A. So that was the thinking here, that C is about only TPC, so let's just say that.
Yeah, which is why it changes from actions of delegates to actions of TPC and removes Board of License Commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
So any objections? Seeing no hands, I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and just accept the changes. Sorry to do it this way, but it's actually gonna give us a complete document at the end. So then we get to the next section, and the notice shall be provisions don't apply because the kind of hearing that we're talking about, and I think that the other thing that's obvious should be obvious is that I reported to our attorney that the committee had voted at its last meeting that we were not going to do what we commonly refer to as poll hearings, but leave the hearings with the council, and that she is not aware of any other hearings that are required to be held by law, though we do have a provision in there should there ever be enacted or discovered that it is in some way covered. I see that Bob Hegner has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the first sentence. It's just not grammatically correct. Need to put a period at the end of that sentence and take out the period shall control and regulate the public ways. I put the comma in there. Typically, commas should go inside the quotes, but I can live with anything else. But there you've got the period, and then you just making it the keeper of the public way is just hanging there.
So what would you do?
I would first of all, you need a period at the end of that first sentence, making it the keeper of the public way. And then I would remove the period that's shall control and regulate the public ways. I would remove that period there because that's not the end of the sentence.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, the period inside the quote.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to take track changes off. So getting back up to here. Keeper of the public ways. So we'll just make that a period. And what was the next thing you wanted me to do?
Remove the period earlier in the sentence next to the
Oh, I see.
quotes. Right. Okay.
So
So I do have a question on 2 as well, on C2. But because you said you wanted to have this done, I just pointed that out.
I appreciate it.
That's good. Thank you.
So I think the next question is whether we can remove the notice section. Again, this was the part of the discussion yesterday at the meeting I described. That we don't want any notice requirement that is other than being posted as a part of an agenda is a usual matter because it's not required. Bob?
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. That we don't want to put a 1 week thing for all public hearings if 48 hours is sufficient.
And that was the advice of Attorney Goldberg. So I'm going to.
So the recommendation is to remove all the darkened text. That's what we're suggesting to do.
No,
So it
that's
should be one sentence. Yeah.
So this actually should be deleted. And then that takes care of the change in numbering, but the suggestion was that we recommend for deletion everything that is after, essentially, after the part that's in yellow, so that it would, the entire section for matters requiring a public hearing, the TPC shall hold a public hearing if required by law, regulation, or contract, and may do so, and if it's votes made to do so. That would be the entire section. Yeah. So, any questions or objections? And sorry, trying to see if we can move this.
Bob has his hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, Andy, the only question I have is, does the language that follows that notice shall be provided sentence, is that obvious to the TPC that they need to do that as part of a public hearing? Or, I mean, is that within, I mean, does the original council policy require the council to do this?
To do the
To-
notice.
Shall record any public hearing. It shall formally open the required public hearing on any pending matter, blah, blah, blah. Is that part of the original town council requirements or policy
No.
requirements? Or did we add that?
Unless Athena's knowledge of something that I'm missing, I think the answer is no. That kind of notice and recording requirement applies to hearings like zoning hearings, where there's some statutory requirement that it be held. But, you know, we were continuously, as we were going through the document, the goal was to bring it down to something equivalent to how we handle most hearings at the council level, which is just notice, and it's recorded in the minutes, and most of the meetings are held. And actually, I think there is, I think, later in the document something to the effect of, if available, that the meetings are mostly recorded and retained, and but that's you know, how we do most of our meetings.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we're not diluting this down so that there isn't any requirements for a public hearing.
Well, if there's a law change, I mean, the whole thing with the TPC shall hold a public hearing if required by law, regulation, or contract. We don't know of any. Attorney Goldberg doesn't know of any. If any comes to light, then they can do so. And we're going to have to make changes in the might have to make changes in the policy at the time it's discovered. But otherwise, I think that it would. The thought was it was not necessary. Councilor Ryan?
Yeah, I think that as we go through the document, Bob, you'll see that provisions are made in other parts of it, making it clear what we expect TPC to do when they're dealing with some of these issues. This seems to have been driven by the whole idea of a public hearing, which was introduced by the attorney. And the thought was to just leave it in, if at some point it turns out that they actually are required under some unforeseen provision, or if the laws change, or if they decide on their own that they want to conduct a public hearing. This simply gives them the authority to do that, but it also leaves it up to them how they're going to conduct it, unless in fact the public hearing that they are required to do has certain statutory requirements, and of course then they'd have to follow those. So I think that's the reasoning here.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I just want some clarity, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's why it's there.
So everything in gray, I'm going to delete. So then we get to the next section. This was something that was came out of the GOL meeting. GOL had introduced a comment that recommendation did not need a capital R, which was in the original. So that was a minor point. In the deletion section, you want to explain it, George? Or?
The feeling was that this was way beyond what we would expect them to do. In other words, requiring them to reference the location at which the meeting occurred, and could be viewed with access to testimony and documentary evidence. This seemed to be beyond what we would expect. So that's why it was taken out.
So is there any objection? None, we will go ahead and.
I mean, I think it's just a question, I think, for us to think about for a second. We're sitting on the council now, imagine, and TPC sending us a recommendation about some matter that we've given them authority to we asked them for a recommendation. The language here is pretty sparse, but it simply says that you should submit a written recommendation to the council, and it should actually, Andy, I think that next sentence should stay in. Such recommendations shall include the specifics, factual findings made in support thereof. And then from the recommendation shall also include, that part all that was going to be deleted. And the question for the committee and for the council ultimately is that sufficient instructions to them as to what we expect. And my feeling was the answer was yes, but that's something we may want to think or talk some more about. But what we're recommending is just the first two sentences stay and everything else goes. I don't think we care where it is, or where it can be viewed. I don't know that we want copies or access to the testimony and documentary evidence. Right. I think we're talking about essentially a conversation. Well, yeah. So
I think that we're getting back to the question is, do we need more than what is going to be available in the minutes of the meeting, if there's interest in having it, because it's equivalent to a hearing such as public hearing that is held. I mean, in like the examples I gave earlier, the finance committee hearing that's held by the council, we don't do these additional things. There is later in the document information about the recommendations and what the recommendations should include.
And I think we need to remember, the council is the final deciding body in these contexts. And if we had further questions or we wanted more clarification, we could ask for it. And we'd say, well, we're not going to vote until, if we're not satisfied with what they gave us, we can ask them for more. But I think trying to specify it here seems overkill.
Agreed? So this section that so then that, this next one is fairly easy because we would be just eliminating the Board of License Commissioners from the requirement. I had the problem of changing. So we're just removing the Board of License Commissioners here.
Andy, I do notice this is something I wish I have picked up on. This also has the same requirement that we just deleted up above about, well, actually the language is very similar in general. Following deliberation on the merits of a request, it shall make a record of its actions, which seems reasonable, supported by written factual findings, and including reference to the location at which the meeting can be viewed, if available, and where documentary evidence can be reviewed. Again, we had taken that similar language out of the previous section. So in those matters where they have authority and they're not making a recommendation, again, is this being overly controlling? That's a question. We didn't discuss this with the attorney, and I don't think Andy and I talked about it, but I just noticed the language is very similar to what's above. So why do we keep it here and not have it up above?
That's Jennifer.
Yeah, I don't know. We must have standard language for other commissions and boards. I don't know why this would be more stringent. Or more stringent isn't the word, more specific or
Yeah,
detailed.
right.
The thought is to take
I mean,
this
what does
section
it
out.
say? I mean, isn't it, it says you have to have, I mean, the agenda for the meeting will say where it's taking place and the Zoom link, and
Mm-hmm.
there'll be a recording of the meeting and the minutes of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to take this piece out.
That's what we're thinking.
Any objection? Seeing none.
No, I just don't know, we must have
Right, exactly.
pretty
What's the
standard what we
language
have
is.
for
Right.
other multiple member bodies are required to do.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Athena has the most experience with this in since she's spent a lot of time with these bodies. I don't know that there's need for us to be telling them how to run their business as long as there's some general understanding of what they're supposed to do, which there must be. Does it need to be in here is the question.
So the next thought, of course, was to remove Board of License Commissioners, but leave the monthly reporting requirement in. If the committee, if the commission doesn't do anything in the month, then it only takes a sentence to report that there was no action taken. But the assumption is that having some sort of report to the council, because it is dealing with authority that is directed, did not seem burdensome. It would just be a matter of the chair or staff support for the committee doing some kind of regular report, so that it's becomes equivalent to some of the material that gets reported in the town manager report on a regular basis. When the town manager does any action pursuant to this policy under the current procedure, that gets reported to the council through the town manager's regular written reports that he provides the council. So I think that was what our thinking was on that one. So if there's no objection, I'll just accept the changes. So that, in the meantime, I'm just taking care of the numbering problem that existed. Take out the Board of License Commissioners, wherever it is. And this last sentence seems to be unnecessary.
I agree.
And so we can delete that and delete that sentence. And this last section was just the title heading, and that whole thing should be deleted. I'll take care of the spacing later because I don't want to. Yeah, that will take care of it. So that moving along then through, it will take care of the pagination at some later point. Then there are no changes further until this point in the reservation for the lunch carts, because it is still referred to the Board of License Commissioner, and we asked whether there are regular reports. Apparently there are none. Paul has never asked for them. And so we were just going to leave it. I think that actually we need to do more. The period would have to come after lunch carts right here.
Yeah, I agree.
Thoughts?
Well, I guess the question is then, how does anyone know what they're doing? If the town manager doesn't get a report and we don't get a report, I mean, maybe, I thought we were going to leave town manager in other words, that, but what you're saying is that they don't do this anyway. So we're requiring something they don't do, and apparently it's working fine. But the question does come up, then how do we learn about this? Because I occasionally we do. I mean, I discovered that there's suddenly a lunch cart somewhere in downtown, that wasn't there before, and obviously it's been approved by some board, right? It's been approved by the BLC, but I knew nothing about it, and apparently, and sometimes I might actually have some concerns when I think about certain downtown businesses and competition, etc. I might have some thoughts about it. So I just wonder, I guess Paul's not here, but I just wonder what, Andy, maybe you can help me understand this. He simply said he doesn't get reports from them. Or is it they rarely do it? Or maybe it just doesn't happen very often, but why are we taking the town manager out of here? I understand the council, that makes no sense because it's his business, but why are we taking him out?
Andy, if I can just point out I'm sorry, I was having audio problems before. The Board of License Commissioners is required to submit an annual report to the town
Annual.
council.
Okay.
Say that
Okay.
again. It's required to provide an annual report to.
The charter requires the Board of License Commissioners provide an annual report. So you see those at the end of the year when the council receives the annual reports from those other bodies, the school committee. Yeah, it's around the time that we do the state of the town.
Oh, that's true.
But this is lunch carts, okay? And maybe there are so few and it happens so rarely, it yearly is not a problem. But as I just said, suddenly a lunch cart pops up and I, just go, oh, that's interesting. And we don't hear about it, and apparently the town manager doesn't hear about it until the end of the year. So, that's, I guess, my question. I understand a yearly report,
Yeah,
but
so
it's, yeah, go ahead.
if I may, I think the not to be rude, but I think the solution might be paying more attention to what the Board of License Commissioners is doing. Because all of their meetings and hearings and so on are posted.
Well, not to be
S-
rude, but I got a lot of things on my plate, so it'd be nice
Right,
to have
it's,
some
yeah,
way of getting notified,
so you can
opposed to
subscribe
just
to
once a year,
you could subscribe to the town board and committees
and add that to my
calendar
list. Okay.
and receive notifications for those, but I think we would need to ask probably Steve McCarthy to give us an idea of how often they act on those and how reasonable it
Okay.
is to request a monthly report from the board. I think as Paul does in the sections of the public ways policy that are under his authority, I think he reports to the council when he takes action, when he makes approvals.
Right.
So you might consider something like that rather than a monthly report, so that when the board does make an approval, it could be a quick notification to the council rather than a report every month when there may or may not be approvals every month.
Mm-hmm.
If if that's what the committee would prefer.
Right. Well, I'm just speaking for myself on this particular issue, and I'm just one voice. I don't know what the
You
others
also
think.
agree with Counselor Ryan? That you would like a report when a new lunch cart is authorized? If there's no, we would need three members of the committee to say that they would want that before, because we'd have to take it to a vote.
Well, my thought is, if I may,
Motion.
Andy, yeah.
Are you making a motion, George?
Uh, yeah, I'm trying to form it in my head. What I'm thinking or like to move is that the language read something to the effect of what Athena was suggesting, that I'm thinking at right, act on request for parking of lunch carts, providing the town manager with a report when such actions are taken. I agree with her that the manager is good about letting us know what's going on, and he puts it in his reports. And I don't see that the council necessarily has to be notified of this. But I'd like somebody to be notified when it happens, as opposed to at the end of the year. That was my thinking. So language would be something to the effect of, it's hard to read this now.
I think this is the language that is in the section right now for the town manager, and he puts it in his town manager report.
When they happen, when they occur, as opposed to it, yeah.
Well, right now we're not getting notification.
You're not getting a notification from the Board of License Commissioners, right?
Directly or indirectly,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, is there anybody else who feels the notification in some manner reaching the council should happen when action is taken on lunch carts? George, I think that you're not getting support.
Yeah.
So I'm going to delete it because we need to move on. We were trying to keep this as brief as possible. And this was section town council changes keeper, its authority as keeper of the public ways provided, however, that prior to council action, the TPC shall hold a public hearing. So we would need to take all of that out because it's not required. Or do we want to keep it in?
I think here the thought, Andy, was to use the word the phrase public meeting, and delete, hearing, just to avoid confusion with previous, statements about public hearings, was the thought. So it would read, provided, however, that prior to council action, TPC shall hold a public meeting, on each request. I think the idea is that we simply want to make it clear to them that we expect them to, and I know they will, to have some kind of public session or meeting, whatever you want to call it, on each request that's made to them. But we would strike the rest of the language. So TPC shall hold a public meeting, and then the rest would be stricken. We're not requiring notice to residents or property owners. That we agreed, Paul agreed, we all agreed that that was onerous and not appropriate.
So. My box. And now. Oops. So we would just leave it at that.
I'm good with that.
Agreed? So then we're moving along. The next section that came up for discussion, as you see, getting down to here is other requests. Town council retains authority to hold public hearings and authorize any changes involving placement of utility structures. That being the sentence, because we are eliminating the referral. This is where we're changing the policy as we voted in the last meeting. So that's pretty straightforward. Again, people who've accepting these changes that had already been drafted yesterday. So as you look at it, make sure that it reads as you would think appropriate. Town council retains the authority to hold public hearings, review and authorize any changes involving the placement of utility structures. And placement of utility structures, just so you know, is the way it's worded in Mass General laws. Poll hearing seems to be everybody's favorite term for it, but it, in the state statute, it's not called that. So we were just using the state statute language. When I talked to Alex Jarrett, they do the same thing in Northampton. They call them poll hearings. But
Andy, just a quick thought. Had you mentioned to the committee that you had a good communication with Alex, and that he also confirmed for you that, at least in their experience, the only kind of public hearing that they hold and have held to date has been these utility structure hearings, what we call poll hearing.
Yes, but they also
Mhm.
hold them at the council level.
Right, but I'm saying that their Transportation and Parking Commission has never had any other kind of formal public hearing of any sort. I mean, we have
That's
this language
correct. I think I reported that in an
at the
email
beginning. Yeah, sorry.
already. So if we,
Andy, GI, you need a period at the end of that sentence. Just after the et cetera, last et cetera. You need a period there. Sorry.
do that.
I think we should, for this too, II1, it should follow the same language that we had above. Shall hold a public meeting on each request.
Yeah.
Just need you just need the word a public meeting. Yeah. Good.
So that was the changes that came out that we discussed yesterday in the meeting with Attorney Goldberg. And some George and I had I worked on, and then George reviewed them. But if this is acceptable, what and is going to be adopted by the committee, then what I will do is, after we vote on it, because we do need to vote on it, is I will send it to GOL with an explanation that all of these changes were reviewed by the attorney, and that further, that unless she feels otherwise and talks to town manager, that probably further legal review is not necessary. So with that said, I'm going to make the motion that we adopt, that we recommend, the Town Services and Outreach Committee recommends the changes to the town council policy regarding control and regulation of the public way as reviewed at its meeting on October 23rd, 2025.
Second,
So there's been motions made and seconded. Shall we proceed to a vote? Anybody want to say anything more? Not, Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
yes.
and I'm a yes. So it's unanimous. And I don't think that we have anything else that we had planned for today. It was to be a one-item meeting.
And we meet next week. You see.
And we do meet next week. I don't have a long agenda for next week. We were see if I could. One item was to see if we could get. And I did talk with Guilford Mooring about this. Come back and review where we are with Southeast Street, and this is a matter that is of strong interest to Kathy Shane on behalf of the Elementary School Building Committee. And the other section is the lighting policy. Though I did talk with Mandy Haneke yesterday, and she does not feel strongly that about what we do at this point, because she says that if reelected, she intends to reintroduce this as a bylaw. And at that point, I think if she did that, I think that it being put forward as a policy will kind of go away on its own, but we probably will want to at least acknowledge that it was in the carryover memo from the last council to this council, and no action was taken because we received no recommendation from the town manager or the superintendent of public works. Councilor Ryan?
Just some clarification. According to my calendar, we don't meet next week. We meet November 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's actually what I have on my calendar too. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
it's all right. But the second thing is that just an agenda item to consider. I think Jennifer would join me in this, I hope, but we would like to meet with and talk to the consultants that we have engaged with related to the waste hauler bylaw. And I don't know if the 6th is a possible date, but I know you had raised this with Paul. I would hope that at some point, sooner rather than later, and certainly before the end of this term, that we have an opportunity to meet with them and talk to them about what our thoughts are and what we've been working on. I think they've already requested that happen. So I don't know if the 6th is possible, but if not the 6th, then the 20th is just a request that we make that a priority, that we have a chance to talk to them before our term is up.
I will communicate that to the town manager. I think he knows. We've talked
I
about it.
thought we had discussed at the last meeting that they were definitely coming. Well,
Well, that was his plan.
okay.
He had to consult with the consultant once they have a contract. I'm not sure that they have a contract yet. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Bob Hegner,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
yes.
and I'm an aye, so it's unanimous. So thank you very
All right.
much for this extra meeting.
Exactly an hour. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Aye.